able to edit as we will.
Sure.
So hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today, that person is Kyle Voltin. I've known Kyle for several years. We met through a networking organization. And there's this sometimes, Kyle, when I don't know about you, but when you meet somebody and you're like, this is a person I want to stay in touch with. That's
Sure.
how I felt about you when I first met you.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. It is strange how you have those run-ins and, people that you just click or gravitate towards,
Yeah, it feels random at first, and then you're like, wait a second, we need to stay in touch. So we have stayed in touch in spite of the fact that neither of us is in that networking group anymore, or at least I'm not. And I've kind of been following you. You've been following me. You've been in a couple of my courses, and I know you're into the world of personal development. I hesitate to say it like that because it sounds so weird when I say the world of personal development, but I'm starting to understand my own niche to be really committed to that lane, personal development. And so you're one of those people who just sort of circles that orbit with me. And I know that we have a lot to talk about today as it relates to what you're up to, but I'd like to start by just saying, what does that mean to you when you hear the term personal development?
Well, I think development, and personal development is just kind of an ongoing thing, right? You're hopefully always growing, learning, improving. If you're not, then you're going backwards and heading in the wrong direction, I guess. So there is just a lot. I've always felt like there's a lot for me to learn, and a lot of areas that I can improve and get better at. I tend to be my harshest critic in a lot of ways and look at things I wish were different about myself, or things that I wish I could pull out of myself, or do differently, that kind of thing. So it's inspirational to hear from other people, to find out that they're in a similar place, or that they were in the past having some of the same struggles or challenges, and they found a way to do X, Y, or Z. It just kind of helps give you hope, for yourself, that you can get there as well, and an opportunity and a chance to hear from others. What did it take, or what did you do? What did you switch up? That kind of thing. So.
Yeah, so true. Because, I think we all know, many of us have been conditioned that you do things a certain way. You go to school, you get a degree, probably in some cases, get a job, and, you're the 40-40-40 plan, 40 hours a week for 40 years, and you'll retire at 40% of what you made. So I know we want to talk today about a little bit about side hustles, and when you know that a side hustle should be your main gig. But what was your story, Kyle? How did you start? Because I know you've had a few career shifts since I've known you.
Sure. How did I start?
Well, what's your story, Kyle?
I started and went to college without really a clear idea of what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I laugh, like I'm still trying to figure that out, I guess, in some ways, what I want to be when I grow up. But I went to college and fell in love with something while there that I saw potential in. Just was in a class about mass communications and how important communications were in the founding of our country and in America, and then how influential the media is to the country over time. It really was a noble profession in my mind, and something that I saw a lot of interest in. And I enjoy writing and creativity and that kind of thing. So I pursued a degree in mass communications. I worked at the newspaper for a couple of years at Mankato. And when graduating, this thing called the internet kind of screwed everything up for media and newspapers. So a lot of fear around what the future for, print media was going to look like. And I fell into insurance and started an insurance agency, got into sales, and had an agency for a number of years, eventually gravitated towards coaching and mentoring new agents. and pursued that. So I bounced around the US. I lived in New Jersey for a couple of years as a sales manager, found my way back to the Midwest, and you know, loved the Fargo area and community, and you know, continued doing that, kind of at a crossroads and a point where I wasn't sure what direction my career was going to go. The idea for Xtra Apparel and a clothing company hit me. Having a brother with Down syndrome, it's always been next to impossible for him to find pants or jeans that fit properly. So I saw a problem there and something worth fixing, and wanted to pursue that. And that was 2018. So about 4 years ago. Since that time, it's just been Xtra has just been something I do. I call it my extra time, you know, in addition to the 9 to 5. And yeah, it's since that time kind of been that struggle or that fight of, you know, how much time and attention can I put towards my passion and what I want to do, while holding on to and keeping the 9 to 5 that I need to pay the bills and, you know, keep the lights on and food on the table, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely, I've been in that kind of in between, or, you know, dealing with that struggle. I don't know if it's a struggle, but just that fight, or, you know, that push and pull, so to speak, of all that. So.
Well, and I think that's the topic that I really wanted to explore with you today, because we're going to talk more about Xtra Apparel and the details of all of that. But when you think about the concept of work, the way I was raised was that work had to be hard, and you had to work hard, and you had to put a lot in, and you weren't supposed to necessarily enjoy it because they call it work for a reason. And all of that was sort of the way I was conditioned. And we pride ourselves in North Dakota about having such a strong work ethic. And I think something just came out. I saw a meme this last week that said North Dakota is the #1 hardest working state. And all of we North Dakotans are like, yay, us, we're so
Proud.
great. What, you know, is that really something that we should be proud of when we think about selling our soul for health insurance in some cases? Or you said putting the food on the table. You know, I want to believe it's possible to love what you do and make money at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the dream or the desire, right? And that, I think, is the biggest challenge is, you know, is what I'm doing and what I love making enough money, you know, and it's great to have a passion or wake up every day happy and love what you're doing. But if, you know, if it's not paying the bills and not generating enough money, that becomes a problem, you know, or a challenge as well.
Right.
So,
right. Well, and I think
but
it's
I
really,
agree. I mean, I remember growing up, you know, I have kind of that hard work ethic ingrained in me too, you know, family coming from, you know, parents coming from rural America, you know, and I would go up, spend a week on the farm, milking cows, picking rocks, and you know, all of that fun stuff, you know, so that, you know, I think is ingrained in me too. And it's one thing, like I have respect for that, in that, you know, in the farming community, the work that you're doing is what's putting food on the table, literally, you know, so that's a little bit different than going to some office and sitting in a cubicle and slaving away for what, you know. And so I've had those moments, you know, over these past 4 years where I've really started scratching my head and wondering that, you know, and feeling like I am working hard and giving my best and all my effort towards something, to what end, you know, and feeling like there isn't always as much loyalty on the other end as I would expect or would like as well. So it really gets you pondering and thinking, is that what I want to continue doing, and for how long, and all that.
for sure. Well, I think we talk about the words hustle and grind. People will say you got to hustle, you got to grind, you got to put in your time, you have to go through the ranks and do all these kinds of things. And you said, to what end? I think when the passion is missing, or when the purpose is missing, and it is only for money, that's where I believe some of us today, especially as we sort of get more we talk about personal development to start with, we think more about what is the point, What am I here for? All of those things that I think our parents and grandparents didn't even have time to ponder, because they just knew it was to put food on the table. That's it. I will do whatever it takes to have that happen. And it's not that we won't do that. I hear you saying it's not that we won't do that, but when it feels like there's something missing in the pursuit, it feels like that's why quiet quitting is happening right now. Have you heard that term, quiet
Yeah.
quitting?
Yes.
So you're inspired to do what you do for Xtra Apparel because you have a brother with Down syndrome, which is how you got started in this. And that pull towards something, I can see where a person would like, hey, I'll just put in my time over here where I get paid money so that I can do what I'm doing to build what I really love till it can take over.
Takes off. Right. Right. Well, and that's difficult too, because, you know, I like, you know, I don't want the employer feeling like I'm taking advantage of them, or just doing that, you know, quiet quitting, or just putting in a half-assed effort to make some money for something else that I'm passionate or interested in. So that's tricky too, you know, because, you know, I feel an obligation, you know, if someone is going to employ me, I need to give 100% of myself and earn that. You know, I don't want to just be collecting a paycheck,
Yeah.
you know, and stealing money from someone to further another interest, you know, and something else that I'm pursuing. So, you know, that's tricky too, I guess, or difficult, is, you know, making sure you're giving your all and putting your best effort towards
It
that.
is a fine line. Think about Google. Think about companies like that, these tech organizations where they are allowing their people to take a day off or take time on their own to pursue their passions. In fact, in some cases, they give them equipment at the company they are so that they can do that. Because if the company or the owners or the bosses or whatever understand that their people are engaged and are treated as humans who have interests outside of work, they will work harder during
Right.
the time they're there to do the work. Now, if you're on a, again, this is it is a fine line, but if you're working a job that you have no passion for, that you have no connection personally to, I'm not making any judgments about assembly lines or anything like that, but let's say it's an assembly line type job where it's just doing the same thing over and over again without any connection. It's easy to allow your mind to go, what else could I be doing with my talents and gifts?
Sure.
Now we need assembly lines too, but I think in some cases, robotics is helping us.
Right.
You know, some of those
Absolutely.
repetitive jobs. As I'm saying this to you, I'm wondering, I don't even really know how to not make this seem like we're bashing employers, because I want to be an employer at some point, employing people who want to be there because they feel
Sure.
fulfilled, you know?
I
So
just, on that, I mean, kind of on this topic, I just wish there were more understanding from employers about people that have side hustles or have other things that they're passionate about in pursuing. Because in some ways, again, going back to that hard work ethic, like part of me feels like in today's age, if you don't have something like that, you know, or you're not, it's hard for me to explain, I guess, but today with technology and everything that you can do, it hasn't taken me a tremendous amount of time and effort to do what I've done with Xtra. I think a lot of people would be surprised by the fact that most of what I've done has been done in my hands on my cell phone, you know, and pretty quick and easy and during later hours. And so, you know, I don't think having a side hustle or a passion or something else that you're pursuing is as distracting or as much of a problem or an issue as some people or some employers might take it as or believe it to be. You know, on the other hand, I see it as you have an employee and someone who is passionate about something, who is driven and who is working hard. And that's who I would want on my team, you know, that type of person that, you know, is putting in the hour, you know, at the end of the day, it just comes down to performance, you know, and is this person getting done what I hired them on to do and what's expected of them? You know, that if so, great. If not, then yeah, maybe there's an issue, and maybe that side hustle is too much of a distraction or an issue. But
do you think it is possible though, just even get theoretical for a second, for a person to do a great job, be productive at a 9 to 5 and have a side hustle? I mean, think about it. But of course, I would say, of course it is, because you've got 24 hours in a day, right? 8 hours at a job, 8 hours you're sleeping, and then you've got 8 hours. What are you doing with those other 8 hours? They're completely up to you. They're your 8 hours.
right.
I would think. I mean, and so in that way, sure, we have families, we have other places, you know, hobbies, things we want to do. But what if you wanted to take 2 hours out of each day to work on a side hustle, to write a book, to you know, start something? I don't see that the issue there. Like you said, if people are productive and are doing what they are paid and in exchange for the money that they get, I don't see why that isn't an option for more people.
Right. Yeah, I think it's possible. You know, it is very difficult. You have to be very disciplined with
Sure.
it. And the hard part too is then you're likely sacrificing something else. You know, I have married 2 kids, you know, so if I'm being completely honest and transparent, you know, I'm probably lacking in some areas, you know, or feel like, you know, if I'm giving time and attention to extra outside of my 9 to 5, well, where is my time to have fun with and interact with the kids, you know, and that kind of thing, take care, help around the house, you know, all of that. So, you know, it's not easy, but again, going back, kind of the point I was trying to get across is today, and with technology the way it is today, you know, it's more realistic or viable now than it ever has been in the past. So with robotics and technology, you know, and things taking over a lot of, you know, and making things easier and faster and quicker, you know, yeah, I mean,
It's possible.
yeah.
So when a person theoretically, because we're going to get to the specifics of Xtra, I want really people to hear about this, but in the real world, in the world of having a side hustle and having a 9 to 5, I don't know the answer here, and you probably don't either, but how would you know when is the time to leave your 9 to 5 to pursue your side hustle or not? Any theories about that?
Wow, I'm trying to kind of figure that out for myself right now, you know, and that's something I've been asking and kind of doing a lot of soul searching around as of late. And yeah, I don't have that answer, you know. I wish I did, and there was some formula or mathematics that you could, you know, put behind. You know, I do think the math is a big part of it. You know, being able to pay the bills and making sure that revenue and you're profiting and the money coming in is going to help you survive
Right, right.
continue on. I think, you know, that's a big part of it, but there are a lot of things too, you know, that can factor into that, you know, just the timing and what's going on economically, you know, and are you sensing momentum with your pursuit and what's going, you know, are you getting more attention and, you know, possible opportunities, customers, clients, you know, are those kinds of things increasing and trending in the right direction? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is it just a gut feeling and a sense of, you know, hard.
I know. Well, and you're not the only one. I mean, I don't know the answer either. It seems to me that a pull towards something would create more momentum, more long lasting momentum than a push away from something.
Sure.
So I've been a person who's had jobs for a long time, and it felt like there was something missing in several of those jobs. So I would go looking for something else, but I was going away from what I didn't like instead of toward what I did. And only in hindsight can I see this. I didn't know it at the time. I was upset and frustrated a lot, didn't realize why. And it was because what you said, there was something in my passion or my big why or who I'm here to serve or what I'm here to do that I wasn't clear about. So it was hard to go towards something when I didn't know what that something was. For you, it feels to me like Xtra Apparel is starting to be a big pull for you. So with that, would you tell us a little bit more about Xtra Apparel? You kind of mentioned that you had a brother with Down syndrome. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the idea for Xtra, again, it just hit me at a crossroads and kind of a strange point in my life, I guess. I was at a fundraiser for an organization called Gigi's Playhouse. And at this fundraiser, they had a video where Gigi, she's the namesake, and her mother started Gigi's Playhouse. Gigi was going to this gala, like we were all at this fundraiser, and her and her sister went into her bedroom, like, which dress are you going to wear to the gala? And she had, like 6 options, like, do you like this one? No. Do you like that one? No. And that moment right then was kind of when it clicked, or when it hit me, like, if my brother were going to go to a gala, he might have one suit, or one pair of pants that fit him appropriately. There aren't a whole lot of options. And that pair of pants that he's going to wear to this gala had to be altered and specially sized for him. I recalled in that moment, or thought back to when my mom back to school shopping for him was like beside herself, upset, mad, and frustrated. Like, I cannot find anything that's going to work for him or that fits. So she got good with a sewing machine, and ever since has hemmed and taken 6 inches off of pants to fit him appropriately. So it's not unique for my brother. The average person with Down syndrome is 6 to 7 inches shorter than your typical person. So it's kind of a challenge and an issue throughout the entire Down syndrome community. So there aren't really a whole lot of options. In fact, the one company, I started doing research and seeing, like, are there companies or options out there? And there was a company, they were called No Boundaries Apparel or Clothing, and they have gone out of business since COVID. So that fueled me even more to, continue pursuing things. I came up with the idea for the logo and the name. And when that all came to me on top of all this, it really just got me excited and like feeling like I had something, and feeling like I'm being told, or directed towards, this is your calling and something you need to figure out and fix and pursue. So that's what I did. I had the logo and got it trademarked and created a website, and I'm just kind of stumbling my way through things. Again, not a background in apparel or textiles, don't know anything in this industry, but I've made a lot of good contacts and connections, and I'm figuring things out.
So tell us about the Xtra. You said it was the logo and the idea. What was it?
So Xtra, the first thing that hit me was Xtra being the name for the company. And Xtra chromosome is the cause of Down syndrome. So the X, there's no E in Xtra, it's just XTRA, and the X is made to resemble a chromosome. It is actually is an image that I pulled off of the internet of a chromosome. So, but then in addition to that, I also, had heard around, like, Xtra was kind of a slang term for a lot of people. Like, they would lovingly say, oh, that you're being so extra right now. Like, you're on a 12 and I could use you at like a 7 or an 8. Like, you're just overboard and too much right now. So that got me thinking too, that, from a timing standpoint, it could be something that, people gravitated towards, or that became popular, that kind of thing. So yeah, I reached out to some people and started printing shirts, and yeah, eventually made some contacts overseas and have had some items manufactured overseas for Xtra specifically. So yeah, we have a few items, fitness items that are available at Shields and Fargo and even Prairie, which is where I'm from and grew up. So it's been amazing, just to see the support and, the little wins along the way, and just, you get some success here and there, and yeah, just continue.
What makes Xtra Apparel different than regular apparel?
So right now, really, there's nothing that's different about it, to be honest, because there isn't a unique size guide for the Down syndrome community yet. And that's the reason I decided to stick with fitness apparel. Fitness apparel is more inclusive. So it works for just about anyone and everyone, shorts, t-shirt, tank top, tights, those kinds of compression pants, that works for just about anyone and isn't an issue. On top of that, it's really promoting a healthy lifestyle, being active, staying in shape, working out, and that kind of thing, because that's important for everyone, but even more so for individuals with Down syndrome, because they have hypotonia or low muscle tone. So diet and exercise is really, really important. So, just promoting that and, raising awareness around that is important for Xtra as well. But then we donate. So every time an item is sold, we donate back to a charity or organization involved with Down syndrome. And a big push or initiative for Xtra as well is just create, I haven't yet, I don't have any employees or anyone on the payroll, but really want to create opportunities for people like my brother. So part of what inspired that, and I actually just met John Cronin about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So John and his father, Mark Cronin, started a company called John's Crazy Socks. And it's just a sock company. John was born with Down syndrome. He approached his dad, Mark, about wanting to be in business with him. They had a few ideas, but landed on socks, and it's taken off. They started in 2016, I think, and in 2018 had over 180,000 orders on his website. Wow. And they have, I want to say, around between 20 and 30 employees with differing abilities, helping out. And seeing John's success really was what got me thinking, if he can do that, I could have a sales force of people like my brother offering Xtra Apparel, to their friends, family, and local businesses, local CrossFit gyms or YMCA. There are a lot of possibilities, I guess, but that's kind of the long-term vision or hope that I have for creating opportunities and, an additional revenue stream for people with Down syndrome.
So at some point, are you thinking it might involve things like pants that they could wear to a gala? Exactly.
Yes. Thank you. So I do, we'll probably stick. I like the idea of athleisure and fitness apparel, but yes, I definitely want to broaden and branch out into pants, jeans, even, button down shirts, can be an issue too, because it's not just the length of pants, the limbs in general tend to be shorter. So sleeves, on a dress up shirt can be an issue or a problem. So on top of that, again, with hypotonia and low muscle tone, that can cause challenges for people with Down syndrome when it comes to dexterity. So things like small buttons or zippers can really be a nuisance and difficult. So there are some brands and some companies that are getting better about this and helping, create more inclusive clothing with, rather than buttons or zippers, they'll have, a hook and loop. It's essentially Velcro, but Velcro can over time, get fuzzy and doesn't stick or work as well. Hook and loop is like Velcro, but longer lasting and higher quality. So that's what I'd like to incorporate and branch into and begin helping with. And the sooner I can do that, the better. I've had some conversations with people in the fashion industry who have started doing some research and studies, but need, just need to do more research on body scans and, have a larger audience that they can take measurements from, so that they have the data where they can create that size guide and know what a medium should look like for someone with Down syndrome, what a large on average, and it's never going to be perfect, but
Sure.
just to have that blueprint and the starting point would be huge. So
Yeah. So are you thinking, in your vision of this, will it be retail in stores, or will it be online, or how are you seeing it?
So it depends when you ask me, because I've been on both sides of the fence on this forever. Because I think initially, right away, I thought, yeah, it'd be nice to have a few retail locations. But, I think a big reason why the fashion industry hasn't addressed this issue or solved this problem is the fact that it's a smaller market, right? If I were to have a brick and mortar location with clothing specifically for people with Down syndrome in Fargo, North Dakota, there really isn't a large enough audience to financially have that viable. So I've gone back and forth over and over, but recently, or as of late, am back to thinking I would like to have a brick and mortar location. And my thought was, just like it is now, our clothing currently is inclusive for anyone. So it works for everyone. And if we were to have a brick and mortar location, and I'm looking to the future again, once we do have sizing specific for the Down syndrome community, just having a tag that's a little bit different to indicate and show that this is specially sized for individuals with Down syndrome, I think would work. And that would be cool too, because then it is inclusive, and it's an inclusive shopping experience where someone with Down syndrome could be walking in looking for clothes with a family member or a friend also looking for clothes and shopping side by side. In addition to that, what I thought would be cool or fun would that person employed there who asks you, can I help you find anything? That person may or may not have Down syndrome. And if you are like me, you're going to say, no, thanks, I'm just looking, and go off and look for what you're, trying to find, and maybe try on a few things. And the clothes that you leave in the dressing room that you don't want, the person who folds those back up and puts those back again may or may not be someone with Down syndrome. Same thing behind the register. So that's a way that I think could create more opportunities as well, and just create that inclusive experience, and give someone with Down syndrome that opportunity to walk into a store, find something off the rack, try it on, fall in love with it, and walk out the store wearing it, which I think would be cool and a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
we
And
may have dance parties every Tuesday at 2:00
Yeah.
at the store. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm still kicking that around.
So Gigi's Playhouse, you mentioned earlier, they are a nonprofit that is for people with Down syndrome and their families. I know in Fargo, people who are listening to this may not know that Gigi's Playhouse had a fire 2 years ago now,
Yeah, it was May of 2011. So
or 2021.
21. Yeah. Yeah, 2021. Yeah. So about a year and a half ago.
And they're rebuilding, correct?
Yeah, we're really close to reopening actually. And on the lowdown, some of our employees are working out of there right now. The ribbon cutting and everything will be just a few weeks. So
Okay. And you say like you're part of that. You've got a lot of invested in that.
I am, yeah. Well, I'm on the board as the treasurer, and have been for close to 2 years now. So yeah, it's not what I signed up for or was expecting when I joined as treasurer. Didn't foresee, I was 5 months into having just gotten started, and that kind of threw a wrench in things and turned everyone's world upside down. So it's been amazing though to see the support from the community and everyone coming out and helping us out and helping in the rebuild process, and volunteering time and, you know, giving donations and money and everything, you know, it's, you never, I mean, you never would think that something like that happening would be a positive or a good thing, but in a lot of ways, I mean, looking back and where we are today, it's just outstanding. So
I think sometimes we even personally, when we make mistakes, we learn from the mistakes. So when things happen that could be seen as a negative and can be turned around, like you've just indicated for Gigi's Playhouse, that could give more visibility to what you're up to. I'm wondering if there's a possibility to have some sort of retail in Gigi's Playhouse's location as you start, seeing about the possibility. I'm thinking about Habitat with their restore. They have some, places that you can go buy stuff,
okay.
even while it's not specifically related to building a house. That's how they fund a lot of what they're up to.
Sure.
And there's probably a lot of things that maybe people who are listening here could help with if you are looking for some ideas and maybe some connections. So how would people get a hold of you, Kyle, if they want more information about what you're up to?
So we're pretty easy to find on Facebook, or I have an Instagram page as well. Again, it's just XTRA. Our website is XTRAPPAREL, xtraapparel.com.
1A?
Yeah,
Extra?
1A, because the,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you can message me really through any of those means. Just reach out, email, or I think my phone number is even on the website on a couple places, so you can call my cell phone or shoot me a text, whatever you prefer.
So if something happens, and I'm going to go back to what we were talking about with side hustle and figuring out when you shift over. If anybody out there who has an idea about something that you'd like to be a pull towards something in the future is listening now and wants to connect with you, Kyle, just to have those kinds of conversations too. I know you well enough to know that would be something you would be happy to have a conversation about as well.
Yeah.
Because it's when like-minded and like-hearted people come together in a spirit of harmony that we learned in Think and Grow Rich, that's where the mastermind, which is the best of all of us, comes into the conversation and gives us ideas we couldn't have come up with on our own. And that's the beauty of just getting the word out about things. Because I believe all of us are doing the best we can with what we currently know on our own when we have these side hustles, or when we have these, even looking for a way to have more fulfillment at a 9-to-5. Sometimes it's the conversations that can spark new interest and new engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm always up for a conversation, and I like hearing other people's ideas and passions too, because that is what, like John's Crazy Socks did for me, that seeing someone else's story or success, can create ideas of your own, and things you can steal or pirate or tweak and make your own.
There's no stealing when we're giving it to each other as we're collaborating,
Yep.
And I think that's another thing that's so funny, because collaboration, when true collaboration happens, people don't really care who gets the credit, and they don't care, who gets the accolades, because together we're actually changing the world, and who's keeping score in that way.
Right.
So John's Crazy Socks and Xtra Apparel, there's probably some way at some point that you guys would probably end up collaborating if you really think about it.
We're talking.
Right, see? And it's just the conversations that spark things. If we get stuck in our old limiting beliefs, we'll never explore things.
Right.
You said at one point you were talking about how this idea came to you and it felt like a calling in some way that you couldn't. Maybe you tried to not hear it, but at some point, some of those things don't leave us alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely felt that way, and I think there have been moments where that's what's pushed me forward and kept me going with things too, is just, thinking back on that, or having that feeling in that sense that no, persist, keep going,
Yeah,
keep trying,
yeah.
that kind of thing.
And I know that feeling. I really do know that feeling, because there have been so many times in my experiences having my own company where I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't not at some point. And going back into organizations, coming back out, going back in, out, it's the fear of limits and scarcity that prevents me sometimes from going all in on things. And
Sure.
so if we could just shift our mindset in this conversation, for anybody who's listening, and get real about that, because that's what this podcast is all about. REAL is an acronym for radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. And we talked about personal development at the beginning of this conversation. Imagine what could happen if people were dedicated to their own personal development in such a way that that energy pulls us all forward. All of our ventures would be more fulfilling and engaging. Even the ones who have employees who have been quiet quitting and have been, great resignation. I just believe there's a way that if we can encourage these kinds of conversations, everything will benefit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would agree, just working towards those things, having those conversations does benefit you, and just beginning to challenge the status quo, so to speak, and really giving more thought to, what do I really desire? What am I here for? And what am I working towards, and that kind of thing. And I think being real with yourself and open to those conversations just draw you towards people who are having that same, and want to be in that type of conversation.
Right.
As
Well, and the thing is, this was kind of an aha for me a few years ago. It occurred to me that not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. In fact, very few people actually do. I mean, it's not that.
I heard, I want to say, I think it was fewer than 17% of population is willing to pursue, the route of entrepreneurship. So just, that in itself is an accomplishment, is what this person that was sharing that statistic and number with this group that I was in was getting across, is you're in, rare company just being here, and willing to take the risk and get started. So
Yeah.
that's what I've noticed too recently, or as of late, is, there is a community and seems like a lot of excitement or willingness to help those people that are stepping out and willing to pursue those types of things currently. There are networks and there are companies and organizations that are, they've been there themselves, and that a lot of times is why such an organization exists, is, they realize too that that's what pushes the economy forward, and is so much of what's needed is just that innovation and, that drive and that willingness to solve problems and do better, and, new ideas and new ways of thinking and doing things are very important. So that's been really exciting for me, recently, just to kind of be introduced to some of those types of things, and find out about organizations that are out there to help, people like myself and entrepreneurs and people that have an idea and something that they're trying to achieve or solve. So,
And the really interesting thing to think about too is entrepreneur does not mean solopreneur, which means that at some point, those people who are not feeling the pull to be entrepreneurs themselves are going to be looking for opportunities to have jobs and to work with entrepreneurs. And I think that's what I've forgotten as a solopreneur, that sometimes the people who are like you and I talked about, have good work ethic and are willing to put in the time and effort, when they find somebody whose passion aligns with theirs. It doesn't mean they always have to be the boss or be in charge. It means that they want to be part of a team. They want to be in collaboration with something that makes a difference in the world. And when you are really clear about your purpose with Xtra Apparel and what you're here to do and why you're here to do it, those people who are not cut out to be the entrepreneurs but want to be part of that are going to find you. The magnetic energy, that's the E of the real acronym, energy, can't help but pull people into that.
Sure.
And I have forgotten in some ways that, oh, I don't have to do this by myself. Oh, there are other people who want to support and be
Sure.
part of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of reaching that point right now where I'm realizing I can't continue being a solopreneur, you know, for things to go and, you know, to grow into what I envision and want them to be. I can only do so much, you know,
Yep.
so yeah, I'd like to shift from being a solopreneur into being an entrepreneur and finding some, you know, some like-minded people, you know, that are looking for, you know, an opportunity or something to be a part of. So.
And I think I'm going to make it seem really simple. It's not this simple, but it's just having these conversations. It's just letting people know, because if people don't know, if they have no opportunity to choose where they want to put their time and attention, how would they know to choose you?
Right.
So part of that is why I want to help you get the word out here about Xtra Apparel and what you're doing and why it's so important. And for anybody, it could be Xtra Apparel that you want to be part of, or it could be Kyle's conversation sparking something in you that says, wow, I could do this too. Maybe it's a leader in an organization where your people are quiet quitting, and you can ask yourself, why is that they're quiet quitting my organization? Am I not providing them enough of the why of our organization to keep them engaged? All of this is just conversations.
Right.
So thank you so much, Kyle, for having the conversation with me.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And as you heard, everybody, I'll put all the information in the show notes about how to get a hold of Kyle, how to get a hold of Xtra Apparel. It's 1A EXTRAPPAR. I don't know how to spell apparel.
Well, maybe we can type it up or something.
Okay, we'll type
provide
it
a link.
We'll provide a link. But make sure you take a look at that. And thank you, Kyle, for being with me.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, everybody, it's
fun.
time to get real. Yeah. So do this in your own lives, and you'll find that the people can't help but find you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jody.